Welcome to today's edition of Mainstream with Harpreet Toor. आप सबनु प्यार भरी सत श्री अकाल, नमस्कार, आदाब and shalom. Please make sure that you send an email. I have started getting few emails, but I personally would like to get more than what I am getting right now, because I think there are two reasons. One is people, they do listen to the show, but they just hesitate to write. And the other thing is, there are some people who may not even be that much familiar with the email, how to communicate with the email. But there are those people who are writing to me, they are really bringing up some of the very interesting things to me. And the more I hear from you, the better I think it will be for everybody. For me, if there is something which I don't know or I may not know about it, I can do the search on that. And if there is something else which is which again, I'm sorry, while I'm talking, I'm also sending a message because I have a guest coming in. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. So going back to where I was, that this show is about not what is happening, but I'm also trying to think ahead what could be happening in the, based on the trajectory of the events, based on the history, that what could be expected. So when we talk about that, for example, let's talk about the hottest issue which is going on right now, the war between Israel and Hamas. Okay, Hamas, yeah, it is being said that it is a terrorist organization. Okay. Fine, I can agree with that, but I have a little bit reservation about how to define a terrorist. The acts are definitely the acts of a desperate person, and we can definitely associate them with the terrorist. But then again, on the other side, when we look at the West Bank and where those the Jewish residents are pushing the Palestinians who have been living there for generations by force, and then the government comes in, their court system and everything, they kick them out, they destroy the house and they build their own houses. So how would you define that group of people who happen to be Jews? I'm not trying to give any credit to anybody who literally killed those 1,200 people, but at the same time, what I'm trying to bring here is, what's the cause issue, the bottom line issue? What is happening at the bottom, and how it can be, so much on the back, because there was a time when there were two-state solution being discussed, and then of course, then that two-state solution was then the two-state solution was ignored by the current administration, which is Benjamin Netanyahu. And Benjamin Netanyahu actually was the one who, there are two reasons for that. Number one, of course, is what we call his own way of functioning and thinking, and also because he was convicted of the stuff which he did when he was a prime minister previously. So he knew that if he has to stay out of the jail, he needs to be in the power, and he needs to then temper the courts. And you got to give a credit to the people from Israel who actually stood up and fought for that, even though he did not give up the whole idea about it. But at the same time, he had to back down a little bit to bring it back again, and that law change was again on the agenda when this thing happened. That's number one. Number two, the tunnel which they have just found, which was constructed by Hamas for their attack on the border with Israel, they had no idea. So, which means what? Which means basically there are only two probabilities of that. One probability is that whatever input was coming in, it was being ignored, or the people who were reading it, they were not reading it properly. And number two, it was intentionally done so that this war could start, and once the war starts, the whole Gaza could be bombarded to the ground, and then pushing the countries around there, Egypt in particular, to accept the people who are from Gaza to live on Egypt's land, and then Israel can hobble up or gobble up the whole Gaza. So, if that thing happens, I will not be surprised, because even though Joe Biden has publicly said it, that that will not be accepted at all, but Benjamin Netanyahu / Bibi is still doing what he wants to do. He is not paying any attention to whatever is being proposed by the current administration of Joe Biden. With Joe Biden, he was not really that good friend anyway. He was more closely associated with Trump, and he may be looking at Trump coming back in 2024 after the election, and maybe he can just then get whatever he wants, get it done his way, the way he wants it. So, that is also one of the things. So, based on those assumptions, same way like what is happening in Russia, Putin is hoping that Trump will become the president again, and once he is the president, then the whole scenario will change, the aid to Ukraine and everything will stop, and then he can, the President Putin then can get away with, like they say, quote unquote, murder. Remember that phrase which Trump used, that he can shoot a person on the Fifth Avenue and still people will come out and vote for him. That has been proved so true so far. And that also brings to my mind, earlier this morning, it was in big news this morning, and it has been going around since last night, that Russia, China, Iraq, and Cuba, not Iraq, Iran, Russia, China, Iran, and Cuba, they tried to manipulate the elections in 2020, and that 2020 election actually, yes, they either did not try or they could not succeed in reaching the machines which actually take the count the votes, but they definitely try to play with the minds of the people by using social media, TikTok in particular, and of course the other, Instagram, Facebook, of course, but Facebook is right now not one of the favorite one, and so that is something, and 2024 election is definitely going to be very interesting election from that perspective, that how these social media platforms, they can and they will affect the outcome of the election. Right now there are no rules either in United States or globally, and these companies are using all what they can to get the maximum out of that. And that is something which actually is scary. And then now on top of that, AI is here, artificial intelligence. First the chat GPT came in almost a year ago. Now we are already into next phase of it. And how and where it will lead in 2024 election, I don't know, because already using the tools which are already available out there, the personalities who are actually in the forefront, they are looking at it that their images are being used, manipulated, putting up their images on in a compromising way which was not there at all to begin with. So basically what is happening, taking out somebody else totally from somewhere else on a different platform, picking up the face from a different platform, merging it, making it look like that, okay, it was Harpreet who was there and who was doing whatever those acts are, or speaking whatever is being spoken, even though Harpreet never said that. So which definitely is a scary part. And that is where this new whole, that again going back to Israel-Hamas war, that war also is being changed by these new tools which are out there. Hamas actually is using the drones which are considered to be obsolete, but they are using them with a really good success. Ukraine is doing same thing. Russia is honing up its ammunition and everything. And so 2024 basically is going to be a very interesting, if I may say so in a very soft tone, a very interesting year politically, because we have elections right here in US and we have elections in India also. US, yes, a really democratic country, which is being pushed to become a dictatorship country, and India, which also claims to be the biggest democratic country population wise, yes. But the process over there, how democratic the process is, I don't know, because recently in Lok Sabha, they kicked out so many MPs that there is no opposition at all. So literally the government can push whatever they want to do because they have supermajority. Supermajority means what? That they can write the law, pass the law without anybody, any objections or anything, and that law can change the trajectory of the whole system. And that is something, which we need to understand. Like I always say on this show, and I always talk about that, what is democracy? Democracy is the democratic process which you have to get involved. You have to get involved, and if you don't get involved, then the minority rules majority. Let's take a break. After the break, a guest will be joining us, and I will be right back with you.
City welcome and we support our immigrants, but right now what's happening is that the city government under Mayor Adams and this administration has not done nearly enough to support our asylum seekers coming here. And I want to be very clear, this is absolutely an issue that our federal government, our state government, everybody needs to be pitching in and helping. But even if they aren't doing that part, the answer is not to blame asylum seekers for the fiscal challenges we face the city. The answer is not to cut essential services that asylum seekers and our immigrant communities and frankly all New Yorkers depend on. But those are the kinds of things that this administration or this mayor that he's doing right now. He's blaming asylum seekers. He's cutting so many of our services, from sanitation services to parks to libraries to schools. I mean, when you think about it, if you want to provide stability, opportunity, mobility for people to overcome poverty, for asylum seekers to have support, you invest in those services, you don't cut from them. But right now, the mayor has created a crisis, frankly, of his own creation, saying that we are on a fiscal cliff and we need to make all these cuts. The reality is all of these cuts will create the fiscal cliff that he is talking about now. And in this moment, we need to be providing services and support for immigrant communities, for asylum seekers, not cutting from city government.
You know what is interesting, which you definitely would know about it, because being from South Asia, in Pakistan, they had so many refugees from Afghanistan. We never heard about it. They were taken care of it. And whatever it was, yeah, that was local politics that they pushed them back into Afghanistan. But they never treated them the way immigrants are being, these undocumented people are being treated here. Not government, of course, and also by the local residents.
Yep.
And they are afraid of, they are coming up with all these different stories. And I personally do understand to some extent that these people, they may not be aware of, lot of things, because this is a totally new country for them. Like for me, when I came in,
Yep.
there were things which I saw and I was shocked. So when we talk about cutting down these services, how do we expect then the local communities to react if the mayor is reacting like that? And wherever he is putting up those tent cities, that's what they call it.
That's,
I'm sorry to say, but that's what they call it.
That's a very good point. And I think leadership really begins at the top. You, as mayor, we as elected officials set the tone for language, not just for policy, but for language, how we talk about these issues. And Mayor Adams has said before, which I strongly disagree with, that this issue of immigration will destroy New York City. You can never talk that way. Those are straight Republican, Donald Trump talking points, where you're basically saying, immigrants are destroying or will destroy the city, when the reality is immigrants have built this city.
Vermins. That's what he called us.
Yeah.
Yep. And he also called us that we are actually bringing, he used some word for blood, dirty blood or something like that, whatever it is.
The point is, Donald Trump obviously has trafficked in so much lies, white supremacist hatred, and stoked all of these anti-immigrant feelings. With a narrative like this that the mayor is putting out there, you are unlocking and tapping into a lot of those feelings, which is why we see it in some communities too across the city, that kind of anti-immigrant hate and rhetoric. That is abhorrent. That has no place here. And frankly, that is creating and manufacturing the crisis that the mayor claims that we're in, because we're not, truthfully. If you look at, I was just reading the New York Times today on the state of the economy nationally and how things are going. The inflation, the risk of inflation is significantly down. The rest of the picture of the economy
nationally
is not the same picture that's being painted in New York City. There's no doubt there are fiscal challenges here. I accept that.
Of course, New York City will always have those, but
it is not the bleak vision that.
For me, Shekhar, with all due respect, there is another issue. For the people who look like you and me, we become more target.
Yep, absolutely.
Especially the guy who's walking with the turban.
Yep.
I always talk about, what's going on.
Yep.
I always say something, when some people, they come to me and they're like, no, we also get discriminated against, da. I said, I do understand that. But there is one big difference, that to you, they will discriminate only after they look at your face.
Yep.
To me, they don't have to look at my face.
Yep, very true.
They will just look at from the behind, even from the distance, and they will know, okay, that's the target.
Absolutely.
And he actually, by putting up that tone along with Trump, he's making more people as a walking target for those people who are already looking for the targets.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. That is the thing. If there are people who are already looking for those targets that have those feelings of hate, this kind of rhetoric is dangerous because it's unlocking and tapping into it. And we've seen it, as you mentioned before, going back to 9/11, way before that, to our Sikh community in particular, and as recently as in the last couple months, has faced so much hate, bigotry, They're the things that we see in the news, and then there's so many incidents that happen against our city community that we don't know about, that don't go reported. And that's why in this moment, we need governmental policies that actually invest in our working class and immigrant communities, that actually provide essential services, not take away from them.
And interestingly, the parks and libraries, they actually enhance the understanding and, bringing in the better citizens, better person out of a person,
Absolutely.
and make them a better, a person who will attribute to the society more than what you can expect from him. And these are the stepping stones for that person. And those are being cut.
I would say both. Let's take each one separately. Libraries, not only, in addition to all that you said, libraries are a point for social services. When you want to sign up, for, if you're an undocumented immigrant or anyone wants to sign up for the municipal identification card, I have one too, you can go to your library and sign up there. Or if there are other resources you need, our libraries are a place to bring our community together. But they're being cut right now. So the services, people who don't have a computer at home, who don't have internet at home, go to our local library. There's so much that our library offers, especially for those in need too, and for everyone, that to cut back on them, to your point, it's cutting away from the net of services that support some of our most vulnerable communities.
So it's basically trying to take the oxygen away from the patient, who needs it the most at that time.
It is not sense back and positive. Same thing with our parks. Our parks, I was very clear in questioning the budget director for this administration at the hearing. There are over 1,400 parks workers that are losing their positions. Over 1,000 of which are part of a program where they get public benefits, cash assistance, SNAP, and as part of that, they work to clean our parks. They are the majority of services for cleaning our parks. Mayor Adams is wiping out that program entirely. So you're eliminating a workforce development program, and you're also eliminating the services that clean our parks.
And that is something, which is, oh God. We have to take a break,
Sure.
We are going to take a small break here. After the break, we will be right back. Welcome back to Mainstream with Harpreet Toor again. We were continuing, we were talking to Shekhar here, the city councilman, and we're talking about the budget, the cuts, and how it affects. We were just talking about the park, but the city budget actually is a huge deal. How much is it?
$110 billion.
Right, $110 billion. And we're talking about this year's budget. Next year's budget is coming up still, right?
That's right. So right now, what we're in the process of is we passed the budget in June. The mayor is now, unilaterally proposing or pushing through changes to that budget where all these cuts would be. What he's saying is every agency, a 5% cut to every single agency. So cutting back on sanitation, garbage pickup, cutting back on parks. The parks one I mentioned because, as I said before, that's a program that, it employs people who run public assistance. They clean our parks. They constitute most of our parks workers. And they clean the parks 4 days a week, and one day they have job training, GED classes. It's a great program that is beloved in parks because it both provides a path for stability for workers. There are stories, and many of them are women of color. The news has reported on many who learned other professions while working and cleaning our parks, came from struggling a lot to be able to have steady employment because of this program. And the mayor is wiping it out entirely. And so that means, one, our parks are not going to be cleaned. It means our parks will be cleaned once a week as opposed to 7 days a week. 17,000 garbage cans in our parks will be overflowing with trash because they won't be cleaned up as regularly. And then, of course, you have all of these workers that relied on this program that will no longer have it anymore. And if you think about that, the overall cut to our parks budget ends up being 12%. That is a year or 2 years after I was proud to fight for the largest budget for a parks department in our city's history.
Well,
but that's being rolled back.
Yeah, there is one more factor, which probably either it's not, everything doesn't come to mind immediately. parks is something, which also keeps the kids away from getting away from the track. They come to the park, they have the room to play. New York City already has fewer parks per capita.
That's right. Yep.
All right?
Absolutely
Try
true.
to touch the Central Park.
Yep. Yep.
I dared Mayor to touch anything from Central Park.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
But they go to the areas where the communities are more, vulnerable, and those communities need it more.
Right. Yep. Yep. That is the very, very sad truth and reality. And the one thing I did is I actually asked the budget director. I said, the mayor is exempting, in the next round of cuts, the police department, sanitation, on the grounds of public safety and cleanliness. But I said our parks are important for public safety. One, they need the support of our, PEP officers in our parks and, making sure that everything is okay. But also parks themselves, to your point, they're places where our youth go to play, to get together. So they actually help improve public safety. And we want our parks clean. So if the two reasons to exempt other agencies from cuts are public safety and cleanliness, then why don't they apply to the Parks Department too? That's already seeing a 12% cut. There's no thought to this.
Yeah, there is another thing which I will add to from my experience. Whenever, when I was in school and college, my parents, I did same thing to my kids. That whenever they are studying, they are like, oh, I'm tired from studying right now. Okay, go out, play, come back.
Absolutely.
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 And that is actually, that cycle of keeping that kids on track and making them, intellectually more intelligent.
Yep.
Because that plays its own part in it.
We know from COVID alone that our parks and our public spaces are crucial for our mental health, our well-being. And I can tell you that as Parks Chair from Jackson Heights, we in Jackson Heights rank 50 out of 51 council districts when it comes to green open space. And after redistricting, I'm losing a park in the district. So I may even be 51 out of 51 at this point, which is shocking, but it also means my focus on the Parks Committee is to call attention to how communities of color in particular get affected by all these things, how parks is an issue of racial justice, of climate justice. But to your point, we saw from the pandemic how important our parks and public spaces were. To go out and be socially distant, to run around for your mental health, for your well-being, for seniors to come together, for children to come together. If we lose those spaces, where do our kids go? Where do the events that bring our community together go? And so parks are not luxuries. Parks are not, privileges. They are essential spaces in our city. And it's time they're treated that way because, to your point, New York City spends less per person on our parks than every major city in the country. LA, Washington, D.C., Chicago. We are so far behind. And Mayor Adams actually campaigned and promised to increase our parks budget to 1%, or with the $100 billion budget, 110, about $1 billion for parks. Instead, all we're seeing are cuts, rolling back everything that we depend on.
And also, not only that, the parks and library, they go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
To enhance the quality of life in those neighborhoods which need it most.
And that's why these are not just cuts to an institution. These are foundational places, right? They call them places where our communities come together for one thing or another, whether it's a class at the library, a reading with children, like I said before, to get access to a computer or the internet. Now Sunday service at our libraries is gone. Most people go to the libraries on Sundays. Your day off, I take my own kids to the library then. But they play such an important role socially, it's shocking to cut them. Same with our parks. Now, one thing I will say is, as I said before, the economy is not nearly as bad as the mayor is saying. There are fiscal challenges, no doubt about that. But there are choices to be made on how you go about making the budget. And the mayor has chosen poorly. There are plenty of places in the city budget, in our agencies, that you can look at and find ways to get savings there. You can do that without touching all of these essential programs that we need. And that work hasn't been done.
Oh, I'm definite, because like I was telling you that I did work for city at one point, and I saw the budget, and from my remembering from that experience, I knew exactly where some of the cuts they can be made,
Yep.
where some of the people they just come and they don't do anything, and make the adjustments, increase the output by making those adjustments, and instead of cutting, you are going to add more services and everything.
Exactly. And there's another bigger problem, which we showed at our hearings too, is so you're not cutting from the right places. You're not cutting the actual waste in the city budget. I'll give you one example. The administration spent over $400 million on a no-bid contract for a company that's supposed to be providing services for migrants who come here. But there was no bid for it. It's over $400 million, and there have been tons of problems and a lot reported about this company, DACO's ability to actually provide those services.
Is it the same company where we heard that there was food which was meant for them and it was
company. Same exact company.
Not used?
Yep, same company. Correct. That's a $450 million contract. And so you want to talk about savings? Look at places like that, right? But I think that's really the issue here is that we will make the fiscal cliff and the doomsday that he's predicting a reality if we approach things this way. We have to actually invest in our services, invest in New Yorkers in a much different way. And that's the work we're trying to do. At one point I wanted to mention before was, to your point about the city workforce, the number of vacancies in city government right now is at a record high. And in agencies, for example, like HRA, where we had a hearing just a couple months ago, people are applying for food stamps, for public benefits, but there's a long delay. It's gotten better since COVID, yes, but still a long delay because they don't have enough staff to process all the applications. So how can you cut from agencies that already don't have enough staff that are providing the services that New Yorkers depend on? It's a vicious cycle that will only spiral downwards.
Yeah, because that is what happens, and this is something which I honestly, a lot of time I try to make sense out of it, but I can't make sense out of that either. But anyway, let us take a break, another time for a break, and after the break, we will be right back.
Absolutely.
Welcome back to Mainstream. We are actually in the last segment, I think. Yes, we are into the last segment right now. But before we wrap up the segment, there are, again, about the budget, and after COVID, we need to talk about the health also. Because I don't know if you know or not, you're looking at the guy who, actually my elder son, who is a doctor, when, I was on, literally they wheeled me into the hospital second time, and he told my younger son that you are looking at your dad alive for the last time.
Oh my God.
It was so bad. People still don't know how I survived. I don't know how I survived. The last time when I checked my blood oxygen before going in, it was 76.
Jeez. This was during COVID.
When nobody knew what the
no one
COVID
knew
is.
what it was.
I got in March of.
Oh, geez, the worst.
Okay. Now the question is, at that time we saw what happened in New York City.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Now health-wise, as compared to what was happening at that time, where do we stand now? That's number one. Number two, I think Queens County is the county with the least number of hospitals per person. Okay. Where do we stand on that?
Well, that's a very, very good question. It's something I've been laser focused on in my work too in the city council. So
I think Almas Hospital is your.
Almas Hospital is my district.
And that was also.
We were the epicenter of the epicenter. I'll never forget. It's my mind is flooded with memories and images, sadly, of the lines outside of Almas Hospital. Frankly, the body bags and the way they stored all the those who had passed away because of COVID. I can never forget that. That's anyone who lives in Elmhurst and Jackson Heights, that is seared in your memory. The ambulances going by every night. And we were the epicenter of the pandemic. I don't think that was any accident. I think that was the result of decades of disinvestment in our district. Elmhurst Hospital serves over 1 million residents across Queens as a public hospital. It turns no one away, regardless of insurance status, immigration status, ability to pay. The doors are open for everybody.
Let me hold your thoughts. Let me say this thing here, and it's a fact. My elder son was born at St. John's Hospital. It's not there anymore.
I remember it well. Yep.
Okay. My younger son, who actually stopped breathing in my hands, and he actually was admitted twice at Mary Immaculate Hospital. Okay. And that's where, after that, thanks to Dr. Gatham Reddy, he was such a great pediatrician. God bless him, he is a long life. That hospital is closed. I mean, you look hospital after hospital, they are closed.
Absolutely.
So when you talk about Elmhurst Hospital, from Elmhurst Hospital, next hospital is Queen's Hospital.
Exactly.
There's nothing in
no
between.
St. John's. Correct. And not only that, Elmhurst Hospital serves 1 million people, but it only has 400 beds. So less than 1 bed for every 1,000 patients that come through its doors.
As compared to Manhattan, how much we have?
Exactly. And Elmhurst receives less. Our public hospitals like Elmhurst receive less in public dollars than our private hospitals do. So my priority has been, COVID revealed and made worse all these inequities that we're seeing. But I will always, Elmhurst is in the heart. I was just there earlier today reading to children at Elmhurst Hospital. And I said as we were leaving to my team who was there that, Elmhurst is in my heart always. And that's what I fight for front and center. I've been proud in my first term in the council before re-election to secure over $27 million for Elmhurst Hospital, for their maternal health ward, for a new entrance on Broadway in Elmhurst. And so many, for a new hand surgery clinic, the first hand surgery clinic ever at Elmhurst Hospital. I met the hand surgeon at their gala, and he said to me, I'm so thankful because he's caring for so many immigrant workers, construction workers, day laborers who injure their hands on the job. If their hands aren't repaired and fixed, that's their source of income, that's their source of support for their family, and he cares for them, but he's never had a single clinic.
And
now,
again, it goes down to all these new immigrants who are taking these hard-to-do jobs.
Exactly right. That's and not to mention even their children. Today we were doing a reading at Elmhurst Hospital for children, the pediatric unit. I think all of them spoke Spanish, and so I was speaking to them. But it tells you whether it's immigrants that is, as adults, immigrants as children. Elmhurst Hospital, like all our public hospitals, are serving our most vulnerable communities, including many asylum seekers that come to Elmhurst Hospital to give birth for services. We need to be, and that's been my work, is to correct all of these inequalities and to make sure Elmhurst gets all the resources it needs. So I've been proud to fight for over $27 million in funding for Elmhurst. Another thing I was proud to do, and I was proud to work with Majority Leader Chuck Schumer on this, is I passed a bill in the City Council that was a companion to what he passed in Washington to expand the access of AEDs to all New Yorkers. We know, and I've said it too, especially in our South Asian communities, but across all communities, heart disease, heart problems are a very real threat. Cardiac issues are one of the biggest causes of death across our country and in our city. So when you go into cardiac arrest or you have cardiac trouble, the best and most important thing that can save your life in that moment is an AED, a defibrillator.
Yeah.
And we saw on, in the NFL when Damar Hamlin was hit on the field, he went into cardiac arrest.
The guy from Bills.
The Buffalo Bills, yep.
Buffalo Bills, yep.
Exactly. It was an AED that saved his life. So my bill in the council that we passed this past year through the health committee makes it possible for our city government to update all of its locations of AEDs in New York City. Make sure they're current, make sure they're tested, and to put it all on a map really of where they are, so that if you're as a New Yorker, you or a relative suffer some cardiac arrest at any given moment, you know exactly where to go to find an AED. Majority Leader Schumer.
I'm hoping that soon it will be an app here.
An app. Well, we actually were looking at that as we were looking at the bill. Is how do we make it online and a portal? But Majority Leader Schumer looked at similar legislation in Congress. After.
You want some water?
If I could have some water, yeah, that'd be helpful. Yeah.
Yeah.
After the incident with Damar Hamlin, and what we see is how important these life-saving measures are.
Yeah, and also there is another issue which is very hot issue. Roe versus Wade. Okay, where even though I know within New York City and New York State, the women comparatively they have the rights and they are safe. for me, the issue is like they are chipping away from every angle on every state. Are they going to target sooner or later New York also?
You know, it's such an important and urgent question that I think that we have to really be very, very vigilant about. Thank you. Which is, the Supreme Court has already chipped away. Not chipped away.
Taken away.
Taken away completely. You know, not chipped away. Taken away.
Taken away.
You know,
I was surprised that Justice Gorsuch took less than 10 minutes to, you know.
It was a shocking decision repealing Roe v. Wade. And you're seeing stories now. There's actually a big case in Texas coming forward about a woman who needs an abortion.
You're talking about the one who actually went out of Texas.
Had to go out of Texas.
When the Supreme Court ruled against her while she was out.
When the Texas Supreme Court did, yes, yeah. And that's what you're seeing, is that the fundamental right to bodily autonomy, to abortion, reproductive rights in particular, if we don't protect that across the nation, the impact is felt most especially by low-income women, especially low-income women of color, and in states like Texas and other places across the country where even if in New York our rights are protected, the danger and the damage done by the Supreme Court's horrendous decision to reverse Roe v. Wade just takes away that right completely.
I will share this thing, you know, because my wife, you know, she passed away. We are running out of time. I'm going to make it real quick. While she was under treatment because of her cancer situation, you know, by accident she got pregnant. We had to take a decision between saving her, you know, or going for abortion. Okay? And, you know, again, it was with the doctor, her, and the family. Who are these people? I'm sorry to say, you know. But anyway, before we finish the show, I want you in about 30 seconds about the budget and what to expect in the new budget when the mayor comes up with the new budget for 2024, 25.
I'll make it very fast, 30 seconds. All New Yorkers should know our city's budget is $110 billion. We are preparing for a massive budget fight ahead to make sure that our most essential services as New Yorkers are protected. The mayor will propose a new budget in January. We will have extensive hearings in the council to hold him and his administration accountable for the cuts they'll propose to make. We have to make sure as New Yorkers we speak loud and clear that we want a city government that invests in our communities and in our services, that doesn't cut from them.
Well, with that note, you know, we are coming to a close, and thanks to the councilman for coming in. And finally, and yes, you know, of course, after the show, but before he gets off the chair, I have to get another date from him.
Smart, because well done,
we have so much still to cover, you know, because the most important thing which I'm going to share here, which I still, because of the time, I did not check with him, was how he reached there and how he has become somebody which the young generation who is growing up, they are looking up to, and how they can go. And I was just joking with him if he's going to be in the White House. With that note, till next time, good night and good luck.